So what we're going to be looking at really is a bit of a story, I suppose, a history of the way games and play, and including virtual worlds, has impacted, to use that word, on the students and on the staff even, and the pedagogy, particularly in our middle school or middle years program. So here's a great quote by Jane McGonigal. It's been a real touchstone in my teaching practice. A game is an opportunity to focus our energy with relentless optimism at something we're good at, or getting better at, and enjoy. In other words, gameplay is the direct emotional opposite of depression. Now, in the years we've been using games at MLC, what's been most exciting is around this idea of gameplay. Is gameplay valid? Now, many of you out there, of course, are playing games and teaching with them, so I'm preaching to the choir stalls. But what's been interesting is coming to play through virtual worlds and then going back, not staying only in virtual worlds, but going into re-leveraging such things as board games and such, and we're going to look at that. So play is what I'd like to work through and look at. So previously, P for previously, well, like many schools, we've gone down the mathematics route, playing those sort of drill and skill and kill games and killing creativity. And I really question these sorts of games. Well, the point I have about them that's troubling is it seems to be so much about developing oneself, purely about developing oneself, having more things than other people, that sense of competition, for no purpose other than to develop yourself. There's no giving back. And when we got involved in things like Murder Under the Microscope, which is a fantastic opportunity to be learning intense science and applying it, what you're doing is you're applying it to real-world problems, even though, of course, they're in a simulation form. And between them, I was really interested in, on the left, we've got that, how do you develop oneself? How do you develop one's sense of status? How does one develop one's skill? And on the other side, how does one put that in the service of community and in terms of how do we use it to solve problems that are really relevant? How does play go from beyond just personal development and having an impact? And that's where Quest Atlantis came along for us. Brian, of course, introduced myself and many of you to Quest Atlantis. And the thing that struck from the very beginning was that idea of the values base, the humanistic values base. That all of the learning and all of the play supports both the personal, how you can develop the skills in compassion, in diversity, and in creative expression and understanding environmental problems. You can develop your personal understanding, but as your understanding develops, you put that in the service of these communities. The curriculum is rigorous, and we've had students write material that would be written by much older students. Their engagement, their willingness to revise and edit their material was fantastic, just phenomenal. We've run multiple missions, multiple units of work, and been impressed by the level of student engagement. One of the most interesting experiences we've had in a world, in the Quest Atlantis world, is, one of the missions particularly that was really exciting for us wasn't a mission itself. It was the mission that was the non-mission. This was how the kids actually found things to explore and develop and make their own. We had students who were running tutorials for other students and staff in the space. We've had students who have just found things they wanted to do and developed things that they wanted to in their own pace. That became a really significant teaching point for me when we started to explore some of the more in-depth missions that are there in the world. But there's one that's really impressive. It's called Runner World, and it was developed in consultation, I believe, with people from the Tanzanian government. And unlike some of the other worlds in Quest Atlantis, which are more sort of fictitious and fantasy-based, this was a pretty faithful recreation of the Mkomazi Game Reserve in Tanzania. And here the students came in as experts, a bit like they do in Murder Under the Microscope. They come in to try and solve what appears to be an issue around endangered species, but expands into being about the needs of indigenous people and having to balance those needs. Now, whilst we had a lot of fun playing with this, turning up to class on Friday afternoons, dressed up like flight attendants, taking them on the flight to Tanzania, going into the world, acting as these people, and really helping guide their inquiry. And whilst they wrote the most amazing reports about how we really need to balance the needs of both the environment and the people who live there, what we found was the more we embedded it within our curriculum, the less they wanted to play it. So the less they began to explore their own things, the less they began to find aspects of the game that they could own. They built less. They didn't want to find missions and quests. It was a really significant point. The more we made it part of our curriculum, the more we made the students play games, the less they wanted to be involved. It was very interesting for me to look at how we actually construct identity. What are the values we learn when we play games? If in mathletics you're playing games to make yourself better, well, what do we learn in games to actually make the world better? How can we be more heroic? And there's been a number of videos I've put together working with students in Year 6 and 7 to look at how we actually create avatars. What does it mean to create an avatar?
So what is an avatar? Would you agree with that? Any differences? Anything you'd like to add? So it's a representation of yourself in an online world, yeah? I love the way you said that. It does not have to be an exact representation of yourself. I really like the way you did that. I thought you'd say something like this.
So what we've been trying to do with these instructions or these sessions with the students is get them to think really, really creatively about who do they want to become? What do they want to bring into these worlds? What are the qualities that inspire them and that they think would inspire others? So these sorts of videos have been, I suppose, work samples of students really reflecting, contemplating, and making very informed decisions before they construct their characters, before they construct their avatars. The whole idea of these virtual worlds as being places where you reconstruct yourself and reflect and develop the qualities you'd like to bring into the world has been very important to us here. I suppose what's most important in any kind of game space, whether it's virtual or otherwise, is that it gives you opportunities to reflect deeply and then put that back into the world, away from the realm of the virtual. So all this work with games, virtual games, through things like Quest Atlantis, has lately led us to re-reviewing things like this is Manga High. Again, one of these games that's not so much based around being of service, but about drilling skills. But we've also gone back to good old-fashioned board games. Cluedo has been an opportunity for us to explore the method or the methodologies of an historian. We used this before we introduced our history unit on Tutankhamun and ancient Egypt. Playing Cluedo, using the structures of Cluedo and the questioning of Cluedo almost as allegory for what they'd be asked to do in their investigation, because we treated Cluedo as a very serious lesson. And this is just one of the reflections a student wrote. It's quite detailed, as you can see. Most important, I think, at the bottom of here is the sentence, "In keeping an independent mind, we have the power to challenge what we've been told and analyse it to be sure whether it's true or false." Cluedo really highlighted the skills needed to judge from fact and fiction and opinion. And we treated the whole of this investigation as if it was an actual murder or an actual mystery that needed to be solved. And we had notice boards, teachers put on sort of detective-style outfits, and we encouraged the students to have that sense of play with it as well, which made our lessons to be a lot of fun. And at the moment, I suppose what we've been doing is how can we make the sometimes tedious study of geography to be enjoyable, and how do we teach about longitude, latitude, and World Heritage sites and such? So the simplest way to do that was to make it a game. And the sort of once again we just took a board game and turned it into an exploration where they needed to collect certain objects wherever they were placed around the world. They had to find their own routes. They had to travel, gather information, and then they ended up constructing movies. So we used iPads. These iPads we used for storyboarding, and our laptops actually, and use of iMovie, we were making movies of their experience. They really loved this idea of
So here we are on our journey to
making these movies.
to kickstart our race around the world. The Grand Canyon is a steep-sided canyon carved by the Colorado River in the
That
United States, state of Arizona. The Grand Canyon.
what we're looking at there, that's actually Google Images or Google Earth that they've gone into to film in. This was very competitive. The girls loved to level up, and they had challenges along the way. If they made errors, then terrible things might happen to them, like deportation and such. But that sense of play meant that the teachers didn't have to do any of the direction of making the choices. The students made all those choices themselves. Like you do in a game, you have those avenues in which you want to pursue, and you pursue them. But what we're yearning for, I suppose, where we're really wanting to go, is we're looking, of course, forward to the new Quest Atlantis. And we're, of course, like many of us, into Minecraft. This is a student project from geography, looking at what we need to climb Mount Everest. This is just a piece of machinima of a student who built Everest, and then within the confines of the limitations of the game, worked out what you needed, and explained as you went on what happened to you as you travelled and got to higher altitudes. I suppose where we're at directly now, or actually hoping to develop, is developing our own Minecraft server. We have a guild of girls who are already building, and this image here you'll see is a rebuild of some of our school structures. We're going through a process of change, and we're also building new parts to our school. And we've got girls in year 6, 7 and 8 who have taken on parts of the school and are remodelling those in Minecraft. What's interesting is that we're looking at a project of trying to look at sustainable Minecraft. It's easy and creative, in the creative way of playing Minecraft. It's easy to have unlimited resources. But what if we had to rebuild the school playing in the survival mode? How do we do that? What values are we actually sharing if we need to be more sustainable, where we have to grow the wood, we have to actually make the bricks ourselves rather than just have an unlimited supply? When you build in that kind of reflection and analysis, when you build that in, I think, and I hope this is the case, what you're doing is asking the students to reflect deeply about what they hold to be true, and to highlight real-world concerns, particularly around such things as sustainability. Basically, I think the work we've done in play, and trying to play, whether it's through board games or whether it's computer games or whether it's playing with technologies, whether it's performance-style play like we've done with our history investigation, what we found is that the girls take greater risks. We find that they're more willing to experiment and get things wrong and becoming more resilient. In fact, what they do is they become more game. Game in the sense that they're more eager and willing to do something new or challenging. And that's what we want. We want girls who are game. We want students who are game. We want students who are willing to take risks and experiment and not get it right. We're wanting girls to choose directions rather than have them chosen for them. We want girls to own the process rather than be told what they have to do. That's what we're trying to do at our school with the use of games, whether it's a virtual world, whether it's a computer game, whether it's a board game. And I hope this has been helpful. It's very quick. It's almost double the amount of time that Bron gave me. Oh well. So here you can contact me if you actually want to ask anything, or you'd like to collaborate with some of these ideas. I'm sorry this has been very rushed and unpolished, but unfortunately I need to be somewhere else this evening, and hopefully this is helpful. So play on, play hard, and hope you end up as game as the girls at MLC.